Dai Rees has seen half a century of golfing instruction, both shrewd and silly. And being a good Welshman, he's watched well and taken what he's wanted and developed his own forthright view of the game. It served him well. Dai Rees has won more major tournaments, 39, than any British player now playing tournament golf. Born in 1913 and a professional golfer since the age of 16, Rees's career spans the eras of Bobby Jones, Henry Cotton, Jack Nicklaus and Johnny Miller. He's been selected for 10 Ryder Cup teams, either as player or captain. And for his services to golf, he was awarded the CBE in 1958. In the following programme, he and Dudley Doust, golf correspondent of the Sunday Times, will cut through the jargon of the game and help you to improve your golf. The programme's aimed at the thousands of middle handicap golfers, the unsung 80 to 90 shooters. What's good advice for them is good advice for you too, whatever you score in golf, the greatest addictive game in sport.
Di, let's start by taking a look at the average keen golfer. The guy who goes around in 80 to 90 most of the time. Can you improve his game? What really are his problems?
He wants to look like the professionals. He doesn't realize that the most difficult thing in golf is to get the ball up in the air. He makes it harder for himself by using straight-face clubs. I'd say that the average golfer, in fact all but the very low handicap golfer, should be thinking about using the 5-wood or even the 6-wood.
The 6-wood? That's got to be an old man's club.
Never mind about that, Dudley. Remember, the object of the game is to get the ball up in the air. If you're hitting it up in the air, be it a slice or a hook, you can correct that fault, but you can't do much if you're hitting it along the deck. When you're hitting it along the ground, it's hard to discover how many things are wrong. Besides, golf is meant to be fun. There's a great deal of satisfaction in seeing the ball soar through the air.
5-wood or 6-wood, eh? Okay, Di, take a look at my bag. I'd say it's pretty much a conventional bag. 1, 2, and 4 woods, 2-iron right through to the 9-iron, pitching wedge, sand wedge, and putter. I left the 1-iron at home.
Then leave it there. The 1-iron is a snob club. In all well-made golf sets, the 1-iron and the 2-iron are virtually identical in degrees of loft. You can also leave the driver and the 2-iron and probably the 3-iron at home too.
What about the club to drive off the tee with?
Use the 2-wood, Dudley. Then you'll get the ball airborne. Remember, only the low handicap golfer turns enough at the hips. The average 80 to 90 player doesn't play enough. He's not loose enough. He can't keep his club on the ball very long with a straight-face club. The 2-wood will help you gather the ball in. It stays on the club face longer.
But if I give up the driver, surely I'm going to lose some distance, Di.
Not much. In Britain, it's only dry enough to get much run for a few weeks a year. In America, they water the fairways. You'll lose maybe 15 yards. But with a slightly mishit shot, you'll get away with it 3 times out of 4 with a 2-wood, against 2 out of 4 with a driver. Now, the 4, 5, and even 6 woods take the places of the top irons, your 1, your 2, and your 3 irons. These irons are difficult to hit with, especially off the fairway.
And why's that, Di?
Well, unless the turf is very firm, the narrow sole of these irons will dig down, get caught in the turf. Whereas even with a mishit shot, the wood will ride, even bounce over the turf. What I am concerned with is playing the percentages. Look at your 4, 5, and 6 irons. I bet if we measured these clubs, we'd likely find that 2 of them, or possibly all 3, have the same lofts. Take a look at the wall chart. When you get home, get a straight edge and measure the angles. If you've got a badly graded set of golf clubs, 3 clubs with the same percentage of loft, you might just as well carry 1 instead of 3. You might think that you'd get 150 yards with a 6-iron, and in fact you're hitting it 175 yards. That may be the same as what you'd get with your 4-iron. That happens a lot. It confuses you. It can lead to the spoiling of your judgment right through your bag.
So what about the weight of the club? How do you check that out, Dai? Is it just a matter of feel?
It's feel. Feel is something you acquire for yourself. It is something you instinctively know, whether you're a pro or the biggest hacker in the world. The minute you pick up the club, you'll know if it's right or wrong for you.
I guess that comes with experience. But what happens to a shot if the club is the wrong weight?
Well, if a club is too light, you'll be too strong with it. You'll make it hit the ball and come over the top. It's a curious thing, if a club is too light and can't do the work, people tend to try and make it do too much work. Generally speaking, they'll hook it or top it.
And what about the heavy clubs?
Well, 80% of people have clubs too heavy for them. If a club is too heavy for you, you'll start scuffing behind the ball because you won't get through it. You'll clatter it away anywhere. It's interesting that experienced players mostly use the same weight clubs.
You mean to say your clubs weigh the same as, say, Peter Oosterhuis's?
Yes, most certainly. And Jack Nicklaus's too. You'll find that the bigger the person is, he's not going to swing better with a heavier club, because he's got to make the club go through a bigger arc than a smaller player like me.
Okay, Dai, I'll try it your way with a 2-wood.
Dai Rees's way. Get the ball up in the air. Use a little more loft. That's the beginning. That's the fun, the satisfaction, seeing the ball climb into the sky. And speaking of loft, get your irons checked for the correct angles of loft, because it may not be your fault if you're not getting the right distance out of the right club. So, off they move to the first tee of South Herts Golf Club in North London. It's been Dai Rees's home club since 1946, and for years it was the home club of the great Harry Carpenter. The opening hole at South Herts is par 4, 310 yards. It's not difficult, not very distracting. And here they'll get down to the bare bones, the fundamentals of the game. The grip, the setup, the proper position of the ball in relation to the feet. It needn't be a great fuddle, you know. Just a few simple rules.
Now, Dudley, next to putting, driving the ball well is the most important part of the game. And when I say that, I mean driving the ball well, not just a long way. If you're not driving it well, you won't get a good shot at the green. People are impressed by the great drivers, chaps like the Spaniard Francisco Abreu and the American Jim Dent. But the great drivers are the ones who get the ball in position. I spent a lot of time with Tommy Armour in America in 1946, and he spoke a lot of sense. Tommy said, "They all say I was the greatest iron player. I wasn't. I was a better driver." The reason, he said, was that his iron play looked good only because his drives put him in such easy positions to play his shots from. Anyway, take your 2-wood, Dudley. That's it. Tee it up high. Remember, get the ball in the air.
Okay. Now what about my grip? I use the Varden overlap grip die, which I suppose is suitable for South Herts, since this is Harry Varden's old club and all.
I don't. I use the two-handed grip. I think you call it the baseball grip in the States. I use the two-handed grip because my hands were small when I was a boy, and that's the way I started playing golf. As a matter of fact, I'd recommend it to people with small hands and ladies in particular. You can keep more of your hand area on the club handle.
What about the old interlocking grip?
Oh, the Whitcomb Brothers grip. That's not so popular now, and I'd shy away from it. It tends to cause tension in the back of the forearms. But whatever grip you use, there's one rule you must obey. Clasp the club. That's right. Now extend the palms. The back of the left hand and the palm of the right hand should point towards the target. They're one piece. Left thumb down the shaft. Right little finger touching left forefinger. In the two-handed grip, you've got to make sure the right little finger touches the left forefinger. Don't have a gap between the hands. Also make sure the thumb and forefingers of each hand are touching the club. It's shown clearly on the wall chart. A good grip is the key to feel. Now the setup. Again, it's on the wall chart. The setup is a serious business. Take Peter Thompson. His setups are the most fastidious that I've ever seen. As you know, he won 5 Open Championships. The feet square to the line of flight, the shoulders square to the line of flight. Square stance, square shoulders.
What about the hip and shoulder turn, Dai?
Hip and shoulder turns are nearly always made or marred by an incorrect setup. If you stand open to your target, your right hip is immediately in the way of your backswing. So that's an impediment straight away. And if you're closed, you don't have anything to restrain your hip movement. So you over-pivot in your backswing. I'm certain that if the average golfer ensures that he's square to the target, the shoulders in particular, he's halfway there.
It's easy to see if your feet are square, but it's not quite so easy to measure your shoulders.
Well, put a club across the front of your shoulders and get a colleague, your wife, or a caddy if you can afford one, and line up your shoulders down the line of flight. If you do that a few times, it will become habit.
What about ball position? Is it perpendicular to a point just inside the left heel?
Yes? I'd go so far as to say right now that except for a trouble shot, the ball should always be just inside the left heel. Right through the bag, down to the pitching clubs. But we'll get to that later. The only thing that alters is the width of your stance. Bring the right foot up towards the left, towards the golf ball. That's the soundest and easiest way.
How far for each club?
About ½ an inch. As the clubs get shorter, so you bring your right foot nearer to your left by about ½ an inch. Start with the driver, or in this case the 2 wood, with your feet approximately shoulder width apart. Then finally, with the pitching wedge, with the golf ball still inside the left heel, your heels should be about 6 inches apart at the back, even though your stance will be more open.
The grip, then. Overlapping, two-handed, or even the old-fashioned interlocking, it demands one simple rule. The back of the left hand, the palm of the right hand, they face down the intended line of flight. The setup, once again, down the intended line of flight. Squared off stance, squared off shoulders. The ball on a straight line, just off the inside of the left heel. Leave the ball there and narrow your stance as you shorten your shot. And to hit that shot, of course, you've first got to swing the club. Rees has some strong views about which hand dominates the swing, how to draw a bead on your target, and backswing and wrist action. All the components of the swing.
Now the swing, Dai. This is usually the point where I drop the instruction book and go out into the kitchen for a drink. Left arm, right arm, cocked wrist, elbow in, elbow out. Frankly, I get confused. It all seems much too mechanical.
Oh, it's not that difficult, Dudley. Remember, golf is a right-handed game for right-handers, and a left-handed game for left-handed golfers. You can do a lot of harm if you teach someone right-handed to hit with the left hand. It's not natural. You don't see a right-handed carpenter trying to knock a nail in with the back of his left hand. Fred Robson, down at the South London Eddington Club, just before your time, Dudley, had a board and a hammer and a nail by a birch tree. He used to ask his pupils to try and knock a nail in the tree by swinging the hammer left-handed and backhanded.
I certainly get more feel by keeping the right hand in the shot.
More loft, too. The airborne thing I talk so much about. Remember, the right hand is the power hand, and the left hand is the guiding hand.
Okay, now the swing.
One thing. Unless your swing is a disaster, don't change it. I have a rule. Don't radically change your swing unless it's radically wrong. You're born with it. And under pressure, you'll come back to it. You'll fall between 2 stools and you'll misfire anyhow. I like to think in terms of similes when playing golf. And to me, the swing is a cartwheel. I'm the hub of it, and the golf club head is the outside rim. So therefore, I try to swing it as round as I can. Get a ball out of the bag, Dudley. Tee it high. A good thing to remember. If you feel you're going to have to go down to get the ball, you've teed it too low.
Right. It's a nice opening hole you've got here, Dai. No trouble. There's about 9 miles of room down there.
Which in a way is a bad thing. I often think that a player needs the experience of seeing a frightening drive in front of him. Never mind the wide open paddock down there. Aim at a precise spot, the size of a handkerchief. The very fact that you are setting yourself up to hit into a specific target will cultivate a more positive game of golf. You can help yourself in this way by picking out a spot. Any little thing as long as it's discernible. Just a couple of feet in front of the ball. Then set the face of the club square to hit over it. Watch Jack Nicklaus, he does this. Finally, have a mental picture of the flight of the ball. A dotted line to the intended target. Get yourself comfortable? No. The only thing I really don't want is that right foot splayed out. The left toe cap can splay out a bit, but not the right one. If you splay out the right toe, it will allow you to roll over on your right foot and lose your balance. Ready?
Ready.
Now squat.
What?
Squat. Drop your bottom a couple of inches. Watch Tony Jacklin. You'll see that he drops into a little squat before he strikes a ball. He's one of the game's best exponents of the squat. It helps relieve tension, and tension starts in the legs. Now slow backswing.
What do you mean by slow? Isn't it all relative?
All right, slower. What is slow for some golfers is too fast for others. Your swing speed is determined by your temperament. If you're a fiery Welshman like me, you can't have a slower backswing as, say, Gene Littler or Ben Cronshaw. I think the best advice here is simply don't hurry.
You don't try to draw it back straight then, along the perspective line of flight?
No. Don't bring it back on a straight line, because if you do, your right hand is in a strong position in the backswing. Then you have to put a kink in your backswing to get your right elbow back in its place again. On the backswing, it's the cartwheel, with the arms fully extended. You go back with the club head, both arms, both hands, left hip and left shoulder, turning very, very slightly all in one. At the top of your backswing, your club should be pointing over your shoulder in the direction of the target. Cock the wrists. The left wrist should be under the shaft. No wrist rolling. I always say that if the backswing is right, there can't be an awful lot of things that can go wrong coming down. There's been an awful lot of chat about pulling your club down with the left hand as though ringing a bell. That sort of thing. I feel the movement starts before that. I feel there's a definite movement of pushing off with the right foot and moving the left hip across. In my estimation, that's what starts the downswing.
In other words, when you're at the top of your backswing, the first positive gesture
Should be from below the waist.
So, for Dai Rees, golf is a right-handed game for the right-hander, a left-handed game for the left-hander. And unless it's really awful, he'd just as soon you didn't mess about with the swing you've got. Aim down that dotted line, and as Rees says, give it that little squat before you bring your club into the backswing. And remember, we don't all have the classic golf action.
Well, it looks straight enough, but I'm afraid it's not the prettiest swing.
Little fast? Perhaps that's temperament. It'll do. When you watch the top players, you can see some extraordinary swings. Bob Rosberg, Arnold Palmer, Doug Sanders, Harry Bradshaw with his original agricultural swing. If there was only one stipulated classical way to swing, only Sam Snead, Gene Littler, Neil Coles, and a few others could ever hit a golf ball.
What are your views, Dai, on this hit early, hit late stuff?
Hitting the ball late is the biggest load of nonsense ever written. I guarantee that 99% of golfers hit too late anyway. I believe in propelling the club head through earlier and with the right hand. In fact, when teaching, I try to get my pupils to hit 2 inches behind the ball in the downswing. You'd be surprised how few people will hit the ground.
All through the bag?
All through the bag.
Well, there are a couple of tips that you don't get every day. Hit with the right hand, if you're right-handed, of course. And secondly, aim 2 inches behind the ball. A couple of tips to remember.